Namaste, everyone. Welcome to episode 84 of My Ambition, Your Ambition. And I'm just going to say this 2026 is already trying to mess with me. We already had to have a technical difficulty that we had to work out, which made us a little late, but we are ready to go and it's all good. So, no worries. I am so excited about this show. As you guys know, I kicked off something in 2025 in the month of August called the Ambition Shows because I wanted to bring people to the forefront who had found a way to take their passion, intersect it with their purpose, and they pushed it forward with their motivation and ambition. It's one thing to talk to people about it, but when you hear other people's stories about how they went through adversity but still were able to achieve what they wanted, it's inspirational. So I didn't want to just keep talking to people about, don't, you can do this if you want to. I brought people on who shared their stories, and it continues. There were 13 amazing guests. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't stop. Matter of fact, kicking off 2026 off with this guest is going to be fantastic, and I'm very excited about it. So, with that being said, if you are a first time viewer or listener, welcome. I just always say buckle up for safety because, I might say something or my guest may say something that really makes you go, hmm. And that's okay because that's what the show is about. Now, if you're a returning listener or viewer, welcome back. I always appreciate your support. You know how we do things here. I always say find that spot for the next, 30, 60 minutes, whatever it might be. Grab pencil and paper, jot down, take some notes because something might come back that you want to revisit later, and grab your beverage of choice and just relax and make this time about you because that's what we do here at My Ambition, Your Ambition. But with that being said, let me just say, when I told you we are about to kick off 2026 and we are going big, we are going big. My guest I'm having on for episode 84 is author Melanie L. Brown, and we're going to be discussing her book, which you can find on Amazon Kindle, My Life Without Sex. A 40-year-old virgin shares how to set boundaries to wait for sex. Can I just tell everybody when I decided to bring this topic up and bring her on, it was amazing how many people start sending me text messages and posts, and they're like, I got questions. I really want to hear more about this. And I said, well, good. Make sure that you tune in. Now, remember, if you missed any of the other episodes, never fear. Hopefully, by now, you have subscribed to my YouTube page, which is Maya Speaks to You. You can find all former episodes there. But of course, you can always find my podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audibles, Spotify. If you name it, you can find it there. But I always tell people I've kind of found a way to make this a little bit easier for you. You can actually take Maya on the go because I actually have an app. Yes, I finally got it together and I'm promoting my app that I wasn't talking about. You can find it in the Apple Store as well as you can find it in Amazon. So right now, those are the two platforms that you can get it to check it out. But again, everything Maya is right there for you. So I'll put this up later where you can scan the QR codes if you need the Apple Store, the Amazon Store to be able to download the app. And right there, you can take the Maya experience right in the palm of your hands wherever you go. Besides the fact that it does feature my podcast, the other piece to this that is equally as important is I do actually have a website, and on the website, a lot of like powerful and good things that I definitely like to share with people. I have a inspirational blog, which one time throughout the course of the week, it's on Wednesdays, I will post an inspirational thought for you. I'm not going to give you daily because what I share, I really want you to reflect deep on and get something from it. And then the other side of that is I actually have my Me on Pause blog. Everybody who knows me at this point knows that I am the poster child for menopause. So the Me on Pause blog is helping women to understand how to go through this big change in their life and gives you tools and resources. But I also took a step back because I realized something. I was kind of selling this for women, but I realized, fellas, you need to know what your significant others might be going through because going through menopause is no joke. It has a lot of changes. There are 60 symptoms that are related to menopause that most women don't know. That can be life changing. So that every week on Wednesdays, I post something I think would be a nugget of information for you to know on the blog. So that's another reason, one, to make sure you follow me and get social with me on my different social media platforms. But more importantly, just go get the My Experience app and everything is right there for you. Now, with that being said, we can jump fresh into episode 84. Let's talk choosing being a virgin. And you know what? It's interesting how this can be such like a, I guess, just absolutely like hot topic for people. It makes me think about growing up at some point when Madonna came out with the song Like a Virgin, it was a big deal. Like here was this girl talking about like a virgin, which she was the furthest thing from, but that's another story. Kind of oxymoronic that it was nothing about Madonna that was a virgin. But just that word alone really gets people like interested. I want to put a couple things out there before we start the conversation. Have some understanding about the ideal of virginity versus celibacy versus abstinence, because they are technically three different things. Virginity literally means that you have never had any form of sexual intercourse. Okay, everybody, this is an adult show. So I kind of need for you to take a deep breath because we're going to have to say some adult words. What that means is you have never had anal, vaginal, any type of sexual activity. Yes, we're talking like that today, so get ready. Whereas celibacy means at some point you may have had sex in the past, but you have decided that you no longer want to be sexually active. And you kind of, I guess, it's called that second virginity. So you have had sex in the past, but for whatever reason, people have chosen that they no longer want to engage in that activity. Whereas abstinence, on the other hand, is very close to celibacy to a degree, but it kind of goes a bit further in a broader approach. It's avoidance of any type of sexual activity. So some people might be celibate, and this is why I can't wait to talk to Melanie about this, because I do find that I feel people are making their own terms of engagement for this, like what this really means. So let me just say this, wrap your head around these stats. The average age of sexual encounters in the United States begins at 17 years old. So, pretty much in high school. What we have found, and I'm going to tell you, this made me go, I was shocked to find out in a recent study that was done roughly 2023 through 2025 that in the survey, when they looked at the age range of 22 to 34 years old, 10% of the men in the group and 7% of the women in the group were virgins. And actually, believe it or not, that was an increase from the last study they had done in 2013 or 2015, which was 4% men and 5% women. Can I ask the question? Did everybody think those numbers would be reversed? That women would actually have a higher rate of virginity than men? Not so much. And what's more interesting is we're finding that there's a trend to this. So, by the way, my guest is ahead of the curve when it talks about what's happening. There is something that's now being termed sex recession, where late virginity is growing among adults, especially men are deciding to have sex later. And there's several factors they say that go into it. Everything from education might determine it, location, like if you're rural versus if you're urban, different things. But take a note on this. There are some trends that are definitely pushing this forward that they're saying is a reason why this is happening. They're saying that things, for instance, such as extended adolescence is influencing this choice, where young adults are staying home longer. Two, they're often not doing things like driving or even having employment. Also, there's a shift in socialization. There's more of a decline in person social interactions, as well as alcohol consumption among young adults, which is obviously influencing their casual sexual behavior. And we know that for sure at that point, we have a generation, which is, I want to say, Gen Z, which is like 1997, I think, is where the start of that is. For them, they are known as the digital generation because they have spent more time understanding the internet, social media, and so forth. So those numbers that are being reflected in that group is really unique. So I've given you some stats to let you know that what you're about to hear from my guest is unique to her, but she's ahead of the curve because the sex recession has begun. Welcome to the ambition stage, everybody. Melanie L. Brown. Hey, Melanie, how are you? I, yes. Can I just tell you, this conversation to me is really interesting because for some reason it's as taboo as all get out. Like, I was surprised the response I got from people. They're like, she's 40? Wait, she's never. I'm like, look, I'm like, I didn't write the book, so I can't tell you, but you better tune into the show so we can get into the details of this. So tell us a bit about who is Melanie L. Brown and where did this journey come from? Right. Okay, a little 6. Okay, I'm glad you clarified that for people because there was gonna be that idea, well, what do you mean they're having sex? Well, because 'cause they're people. So, yes, they are. So, I mean, I'll be honest, to make that decision as a preteen is a big deal because what the research tells us is that obviously sex begins pretty much a little bit after preteen. The average age was 17. So a high schooler is when it starts. And to be honest, in some cases, it's actually starting younger than that, unfortunately. But that's the average age that it came in. So as a preteen, one, it has to be then the conversation about sex must have been had in your house, I'm going to assume. Okay. Okay, but I mean, I guess it is a good way to kinda combine 2 difficult conversations to have with your daughter. Right? Well, I mean, and this is why these conversations, Melanie, I feel doesn't happen. A lot of parents do not know how to talk to their children about the complicated things like sex. In fact, they don't have the conversation. So I think it's interesting because one, I feel like your family seems a little different than usually when people envision the idea of a religious family, right? Someone who's spiritual. They're not in their minds thinking there's going to be conversations about, sex or anything like that, so to speak. But it sounds like within your family, there was an openness and a need to make sure that you were informed. Hence, you could then make informed decisions. That part right there. So when I was having this conversation with some different people about the show, I said, what's interesting is there was always a double standard about sexual activity for boys and obviously for girls. That's why the numbers that show that more men are being virgins kind of surprise me because men are always told, go forth into the world and sow your wild oats, put some, notches on your belt, do all that stuff. Whereas girls are taught, or at least within my household, it was like, okay, listen to this. Your reputation precedes you. If you're going to be out in the streets like that, that's going to follow you and it doesn't go away. And it went even deeper to be like real talk. Like, look, a ton of little boys are going to tell you that they love you. They know nothing about that, and you just don't want to be giving of yourself that way to everyone that you meet. It's private. It's personal. You are sacred. That's the conversation that happened in my house. Now, mind you, as a kid, I was like, what? Okay. Huh? Well, and the thing is, one, I was a tomboy. So I was like, "Oh, come on. I don't wanna hear about this," you know? I wasn't into boys. I really feel I was a late bloomer, to tell you the truth, but that thing about respecting yourself was really big in my household. Right. The I probably shouldn't say this on air, but it left an impression on me when she said it, and I was also embarrassed at the same time. So, I went to an all-girl Catholic school for high school, and I remember my grandma coming to pick me up from school, and, I was giving some friends a ride home. We had found out that day at school that one of the girls were pregnant. Now, mind you, an all-girl Catholic school, a pregnant girl. It's like, "Oh, no. When Catholic girls don't do that, that's a joke, folks, so just hold it." That's a joke. My grandma's listening to the conversation with us in the back seat, and she goes, "So one of your friends is pregnant?" We're like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, well, what did you ladies learn from that?" And we're like, "Huh? That she's pregnant?" That's what we learned. She is at a stoplight. She turns around and she looks us in the back seat. She goes, "You know what the moral of the story to that is?" I'm like, "What?" "Everybody, this is grown up language, so get ready." But it left an impression on me. She said, "Don't play pussy and get fucked." And we all went, and she's like, and she was like, "Do you understand what that means?" She goes, "That girl's life has now just changed forever because she is now going to be a mother and she can no longer be a child and she's going to be responsible. She's going to take care of that kid and the rest of her life will be changed forever." She goes, "When will young women realize that when you get pregnant and you are not married or not in a position to care for yourself, everything about your life changes?" She goes, "There's a responsibility," she said, "to sex that so many people don't understand. It's more than just an act." There you go. And the thing that's interesting about this to me about the sex piece is that there is a shift happening in society, and it's weird. We had a shift and perhaps it's shifting back because now there's a sex recession where people are choosing to hold on to their virginity longer. I've actually worked with some people in therapy who are like have decided that they want to be celibate, that they do not want sex to be the thing that determines the nature of their relationship. They want to be seen and heard as an individual. As one woman said, "I am not merely a vessel for you to think that you can insert and keep going." And she was like, and that attitude, she said, bothered her when a lot of men would behave as if somehow she owed that to them. And she's like, and she decided just to take it off the table, like altogether. So let me ask you this question. Because it's one thing to have the support at home, and I think that is fantastic. But what happens once you walked out of the doors of your home and then you had to go to school where your parents couldn't be there? How did you then navigate? I'm sure the minute that any of your peers found out that you were a virgin, I'm sure the conversation was interesting. So, how did you manage to kind of keep your head above water when obviously a lot of your peers were probably doing the opposite? Right. You're like, Yeah, it's something to say. Okay. Mhm. Yes. Ah, I was gonna ask you that. How did it affect you dating in high school? Okay. Mhm. I like that approach. And that's interesting because now see, you're also putting some things on the table that I think people need to consider. Because to me, you were the last of something that was starting to fade away. So if you think about it this way, if you think back 50 years, which would be right like 1976 roughly. Isn't that crazy to say that's wrong. Um I was roughly like 4 years old, like literally. It was taboo to be a woman and having sex, to not be a virgin. You know what I'm saying? And God forbid if you got pregnant. Now roll that back another 50 years, like 100 years, and you're talking about, you know, you know, 1926. Think about that. The attitude about women and sex was very if you were not a virgin when you were married, you were looked down upon. It was frowned. It was like the scarlet letter. Whereas that was something that was expected that you were a good girl if you were a virgin and then you got married and the idea of marriage. And then all of a sudden we've had this shift where there is a decline in marriage that's being talked about, that's happening, but also there was that liberation, that sexual liberation for women, which I guess in its own token could be confusing. I understand why it happened. Like, we don't want someone else to tell us our narrative about our bodies, like why we can't do something. But at the same time, I always question if that particular narrative was a double edged sword because now we see the idea of sex. Look at the numbers I talked about. Men are staying virgins longer than women. That's to me blows my mind. Um, and girls are having sex earlier. So it's an interesting trend that we've had where marriage used to be the reason when people decided that that's what they would have sex because marriage and sex was meant to produce children. And now there's been a shift where having sex has nothing to do with necessarily having children. Ah, yes. I'm gonna say I don't think that's necessarily all true because I know a whole bunch of people who got babies and they ain't married. So I don't know what he's talking about. I'm like, I will tell. That's interesting. I'll tell you a story that happened to me in my 20s when I was dating. And I was definitely like, for instance, I know I held on to my virginity way longer than most of the people I knew. Like I went to college as a virgin. And I remember sitting around the dorm rooms listening to these girls talk. And I was like, and I wasn't naive. That's the thing. Like you heard how my grandmother talked, right? So I was not naive. That wasn't it. But I was surprised at the sexual activity and the things they were doing. And I was just like, "Hmm, okay." It didn't spur me on. But then what was interesting is when I was in my 20s and dating, I had a guy say to me once, and I was like, you need to seek help." He said, I don't understand why it's a first date. Why do you have an issue with just having sex? And I said, well, what makes you one think I actually want to have sex with you? Let's start with that. I was like, but two, what makes you think I put out like that? And he looked at me like, what do you mean putting out? He goes, it's important to get to the things like right away that matter in a relationship, so we can figure out if it's a good fit. And then if we both like it, he goes, and everything else will come after it. And I said, that sounds really ridiculous. That somehow what you just told me that what you value more in a relationship is the sexual encounter and less about the other pieces. And he goes, well, those things could fall in place. I said, that's usually what doesn't happen. You're starting with something that, don't get me wrong, and you would and tell me how you feel about this, considering it's not you. Intimacy in a relationship has a place, people. It does. I will never look at anybody and tell them, oh, sex doesn't matter if you're in a relationship. Of course it matters. It's a connection piece. But the difference to me is, Melanie, everybody sees sex differently. For some people, they do see their body as a temple, and want to they don't want to be intimate and have everyone they're with like that. Whereas other people see no emotion behind sex. They see it as just an act. So first, it's like, what kind of person are you? That's what people have to determine. But what would you speak? How do you speak to that in trying to have adult relationships at that point? Because there's a thought that that's supposed to be part of adult relationships. Yep. Say it one more. Say it one more time. Say it one more time. There you go. Yes. Yes. But see, that's the okay, that right there becomes another interesting dynamic. And I don't know that men have to deal with it as much as women do. The reputation. Because even though there's supposed to be this sexual liberation, right, that women can go out and do what they want to do and who they want to do it with, that stigma still sits for women that yes, this is true. Mhm. Oh, hold up, hold up, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. He had the audacity to speak to you like that? See, that right there was a, "You're gone." That's highly disrespectful. I would have looked at that fool and said, "You need to start using that head that's on top of your shoulders, because apparently you don't get." See, but that's one thing that somebody had said to me is that, and you said it too, because there are so many women out there doing all kinds of things. A lot of men will come to you a certain way because it's almost like that standard of, I don't want to say the women are promiscuous. If that's what they've chosen to do, then that's their choice. But that doesn't mean that you should then assume that narrative applies to everyone else. And that's what I've found a lot of women who want to lead with. I want to be respected. I am not merely here just to have sex with you. If that's what you think is going to happen, you can move on to the next one. Is that they feel like they are that competition of the girl who's doing everything versus the girl who respects herself. Not to say that you don't respect yourself if you're doing everything, though, it's a little complicated to kind of slice that up, but you're doing you. So if you're doing you and it's authentic and you just feel that way, I'm never going to tell you that it's wrong if that's how you really feel, if you feel you're that liberated. But that idea that he said that to you, first of all, a couple things were wrong in that conversation. So, one, I already got a couple girls doing it. Then you clearly don't need me. So let them keep doing it. What you need me for? What do you? Is he trying to cover 7 days a week? Is that what we're doing? He's trying to have, as those young folks say, he's trying to build up his roster. Is that what? Yeah, that's insane. Tell me some more crazy dating stories. Tell me, because that one probably is in the top 10. I'm sure. What else have you heard? Wow. But here, okay. But let me just say one thing. In like, I will say this in his defense. One, he was rude about how he tried to leave the date. That was rude. He should have respected where you stood on it and be like, you know something? If that's how you are, I respect it. We're probably not a match because one, either I don't want to be married, whatever it is. It's okay if somebody's not good with what you're saying, it's okay for them not to be okay with it. But why do they have to be disrespectful for something that truly they don't have any ownership of, by the way? Like, there is no given that someone is going to have sex with you. I don't, and see, again, this to me, and this is someone who should have been more mature. Again, if he didn't like the idea that you were like waiting till marriage, all he had to do was like, okay, we're not a match because that's not what I'm looking for. Just like what you're not looking for is someone who is just trying to be sexually active with you. And you respected him. You didn't, say, oh well, something disrespectful to him, like, well, this was a waste of my time. Or, and not to mention, I'm sorry, let me get this right. You gonna take somebody to Bar Louie and you think you about to get down? That's the best you got? Is Bar Louie's? Okay, so I'm just gonna be bougie and wrong. At least take me to Michael Jordan's, or take me, you know drop some, impress me, because that wasn't impressive. But for him to think, yeah, somewhere right now, somebody right now is talking about me, like, oh, and I'm not even like a materialistic person. But if you're gonna tie the meal to what you think is my value, you better do better than that. Oh, our guests are weighing in. She says, "Wait, these sound like Chicago dude antics. Are you from Chicago?" Yes, yes. Oh, oh, yes. You know, that sounds like the standard answer that people will say, "Oh, so," if they're bold enough to ask a person, "Well, how many people have you slept with?" And they always say that people down the number. So they'll be like, "Oh, like 7 people." Like, if someone says 7, double it. It's probably been 14. Like, so I get your boundaries. I mean, you're very clear about what you want. And I mean, and I'd be curious, everybody listening, they're probably saying to themselves, wow, she really is committed to this, because you're still speaking of, I want to get married, I want to have kids. You still have those goals. You still want those things, despite trying to find some person that can make this work has been complicated. So how do you set up those boundaries, or how do you keep yourself, I guess, motivated, or not feeling like, well, just forget it, because after 42 years, if I haven't found somebody, I'm not going to find somebody, so I'm just going to do it. How do you maintain your integrity with this? Really? So, in looking for your person, do you also want your person to be a virgin? Okay. Okay. That's not the response I thought, because I felt that, okay, you both have similar interests. It sounds like you've chosen to both do something that's difficult. How could that be the worst date? Okay. Right. That's like, okay, the person I thought that might understand me the best. But wait a minute. Do you think he was being honest about with that attitude, with being a virgin still? How old was he? Can I ask? Roughly, how old was he? Oh, okay, he was still young. So it was possible. Okay, okay. He said something that is a current trend, and I do think this is why men are remaining virgins longer than women, which still kind of blows my mind a bit. There's something that's called male loneliness that is now being discussed, that a lot of young men are expressing they do not know really how to properly adult. They don't know how to talk to women. They feel very left out in society. And that how he described his struggles sounds like it plugs right into the idea of what this male loneliness is supposed to be equating to for a lot of younger men who said they just don't know how to approach women, what to say. And I will honestly note to say that I have noticed over time that women definitely have become far more open-minded and aggressive sexually than probably I've ever seen them in my 53 years. So there definitely is a different type of woman out there that might be different to approach for some men. Um, and his description of it actually I could see why at that point he was still a virgin, but it doesn't sound like he made a conscious or intentional choice. Ah, sticking with the no. So one of by the way, people, one of Melanie's ways to maintain and boundaries is find that fella you can say no to because saying yes it makes it hard. I get look, I understand that philosophy. Like I'm not gonna put something in front of me that I'm gonna have a hard time with because eventually he might wear you down. Like all right. So then does this mean in the kind of keeping, obviously with what you're doing, are you avoidant of things that can put you in compromising situations like alcohol? Because one of the stats that recently I was looking at in the research is saying there is a decline in alcohol consumption with younger people, which they're also equating with a lot of casual sex, which is often tied to alcohol consumption, is also dropping as well. Jesus is white. That's funny. Okay. Wow. Melanie, that was a really big step because a Long Island is not for the faint of heart. To the non-drinker. Mm, mhm. Yeah. Well, because you do know, Melanie, there's a lot of ways that people classify intimacy. For some people, for young, I had a younger person tell me, by the way, my younger people in therapy, I'm like, I'm old. I said, in my mind, I'm like, I'm so old. Because they say stuff to me like, what do you mean you were having sex in your parents' house and you're 15? What, your parents know that you have sex. I, this again, when I tell you there's been a shift in how sex is viewed, discussed, and allowed, even with younger individuals, it kind of makes me cringe a little bit. Not a little bit, it makes me cringe a lot to know that it's something that, again, it's about how people choose to value it. It's for some people, it's something that they hold close, it defines them. You know, they don't like, and other people, they don't feel it's a really truly intimate act. They say it's just an act. It's just something that you do. It depends on the person. Somebody somebody actually posted sent a question they wanted me to ask you. What is the longest relationship you have had? 5 and a half. Okay, so 5 and a half years. That's a long time, and you were engaged. Why did it not end in marriage? 'Mhm. Right, we weren't gonna do this until our little technical issue made you switch over to your phone. Got you. Uh, no, nope, don't wanna end it. I mean, that's interesting, and you're right. Sex is only people one dimension of your relationship, but it is equally a very important. I don't downplay that for people. And here's the thing that I would think is interesting, that everybody sexual energies can be very different in relationships for people. You can have a person who can have a really high sex drive and a person who has a mid to low, and even that can create issues within relationships for people because they're not meeting up at the same place. So sex can be a very complicated thing to even navigate, even if you're having it within your relationship. But 5 years, that's like a long time to be in that. Okay. Okay, so him embarking into it was a little bit easier to kind of move forward. Mhm. Mm, mhm, mhm. He's and you know what? Yeah, see, this kinda plays nicely into the next question somebody asked. Outside of intercourse, is all intimacy off limits? Yes. So when you kind of have this conversation with people, and it sounds like something I said a bit earlier, is that they have to determine how they're defining this. Like, what's their limitations? What for them feels like it's gone too far? They've crossed the line, whereas they can still be present in their relationship with somebody and feel like they're being having some form of intimacy. Like you said, one of the things that most people don't get about sex is it isn't just about intercourse. Intimacy can exist on so many other levels, but when people are kind of like limited in their thinking, that was a nice way I said that. In their minds, it's all about the actual act itself, the penetration, not realizing that there can be so much more that can make something equally as enjoyable, even if you never cross that line. And it's interesting how a lot of people though can't see it that way. So for you, it sounds like you know your limitations and your boundaries. What? But see, you know what that leads into? Another whole conversation about having unprotected sex. Because well, I mean, but I agree. But whether it's I'm just saying there's so much responsibility that goes with having sex that most people just do not consider. I think for one moment in time when HIV was a bigger thing, it put people on notice because they were like, "Wait, I can die doing this." And I think people kind of scaled back and looked at it a little different for a minute. Like, I'm not dying to have sex. I'm not trying to die when I have sex. So hence, I think in that moment in time, people kind of stepped back and it looked a little bit different in that landscape about how people were approaching it. And then as soon as it seemed like it was less of a threat, people kind of resumed what they were doing, so to speak. You said something earlier. Let me ask you this question. Let me walk you back just a little bit to like high school. Do you believe that by putting a teenage girl on birth control, is it giving them a pass to go out and be sexually active? Or giving your son, I got to be balanced, condoms? Is that kind of saying it's okay, you can have sex? You know, yeah. No, it's not. Why is that not an option on the table as everything else is an option on the table? To know that you have choices. The choice does not mean that you have to feel like you have to have sex because your peers are doing it. If you legitimately don't feel comfortable doing it, then don't do it. I mean, I think a lot of kids need to hear somebody say that to them because many of their peers are engaging in it and making them feel as if something is not right about them if they're not doing it too. I'll tell you something else that has had an increase. And for all my parents listening to this, and this is rolling around in your head, with our new digital age individuals that are in that kind of Gen Z, which Gen Z is, I want to say it's before millennials, I think, and then after them is alphas or something. I can never keep track of all that. There has been a sharp increase because of the fact that social interactions have really dropped exponentially. Like kids go to school and kind of go home unless they're like in a sport or they have a hobby. A lot of kids are not experiencing the socialization that I would say I had as a kid. We went outside and played. We didn't have like all these, things going on. There has been a sharp increase in a lot of inappropriate behavior online. So sending nude pictures, um, young individuals being lured out by somebody because they're struggling with something with their, let's say, confidence or mental health, and they come across someone online who gives them this attention, and then all of a sudden now you've got young girls sending these pictures. Young, by the way, young boys are equally as vulnerable in this as well. So now we're also seeing a sharper increase in these type of activities because of, unfortunately, the sexualization of our younger people. We make them feel that, and I, this could be me just being an old person. Anytime you turn on a TV and you see the likes, and this has got nothing to do, it's just not my cup of tea. The likes of someone like Cardi B, Megan the Stallion, you name it, the list goes down. They sell sex. They make it seem like sex is normal. Like, put it out there. Again, it's that I'm in control. I'm the boss. All this stuff. So now we also have another narrative that younger people are hearing, like, yeah, yeah, you should be doing this. This is how you can control somebody. That's interesting too. Like, you can control somebody with this. We're also having that narrative, which is really, really strong for young people. So consumption of, social media, whatever, music, has to me also increased why I think the number of women are more sexually active than men. Yes. Well, it, to me, it's slightly it aligns with notice. When people are not part of something, they want to make it seem like whatever they're not is not good. You hear that same conversation that smart kids get teased by people who are less intelligent. Does that make any sense? They have a problem with feeling like, because they're smart, that that's a bad thing. No, you'll be okay. The people who are making fun of you or teasing you are the people that realize that's not them. So they want to make you feel small and unimportant because you're not part of the group. It sounds like this kind of sexual demonizing is the same thing. We're going to tease you because you're not like us. Well, good, because what you're doing, okay, that's on you. If that's what you like. But I also feel if you don't talk to your kids, they don't get that piece. They don't understand that. And I'm telling people, the narrative out here among young people, and I'm talking about the high schoolers, the stuff I learned, I had to keep doing this in therapy, like closing my mouth, because I was like, why are you even thinking about this at this? I'm talking about the 14-year-olds, the 15-year-olds. Sex is common. It has no value whatsoever. I Oh, that's insane. That that's just insane. I actually once I had a friend. It was a guy, like, back in my dating years, that actually had lived in Atlanta and had come back up here and is was in education. And he said, he literally said, Maya, he's like, I was mortified. He was like, I got a call that I had to come out to the bus because kids, like, and mind you, these are like fourth, fifth graders, so right at that age, actually performing oral sex on the bus. Little girls were doing it to little boys. And he's like, I was mortified. He was like, why is this happening? People, let me just say this. As an adult, you can choose to do whatever you want. But when we talk about the path we're leading down our young people, To allow them to be irresponsible in their in their sexual decisions isn't good because 9 times out of 10, most of that activity ends up in pregnancy. And so now you keep talking about a young person who is ill equipped to be a parent. Now being a parent, and if anyone's been paying attention, have we not seen this vicious cycle specifically within the Black community? I could care less about other people what they're doing. This conversation, the amount of teen pregnancies, and even that's a problem because now we glorify teen pregnancies with shows. Teen Mom. Why is there a show about Teen Mom? Why are we glorifying this? We are glorifying things. Don't get me wrong, Melanie. I don't think anybody has to be pristine and innocent. I'm not saying that, but where are the morals? Where's the respect? No. At 8 years old, you should have no idea about any of that. I don't care what anybody says. And if you do, you've seen something you weren't supposed to see. I know I'm not supposed to. I know I'm not supposed to laugh at that. But this gets back to, but the she's seen it somewhere that's what she has come to know, and that's the thing, there are so many vulnerable children out there. Just adults, like I said, adults can make those decisions. If you decide that sex is just an act and that's what you wanna do, that's your choice. But respect when other people decide it's not their choice, they're handling it differently. So you talked about boundaries. I do believe the music is a big piece. What other boundaries would I mean, like, in the book, is your book written more towards adults? Is it written towards parents, children, or just anybody who kind of wants to kind of wrap their mind around this? Mhm, mhm. Well, I'm like, are you having sex that much that you just can't find something else to fill the time? That's kind of funny. Wow, buddy. Okay. If someone was to ask you through all of this, and you've made a very conscious and intentional choice, and I always say, to me, this aligns with the same way I tell people dating with purpose. You know, if you're going to be a serial dater, it's okay. Just be clear about that's who you are when you encounter other people. If you made this decision that you want to maintain your virginity or you want to be abstinent, whatever it is, respect other people's decisions. But in this, is there anything you would say you regret or that, I wish anything like that? Yes. Hmm. 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 See? See? That right there. That that's so my final question, and I'll let you have a parting thought with the listeners. If you never find that right person, are you going to take this to the grave? I like that optimism. Like, nope, not even going to entertain that thought. Ooh, now you know that's a whole nother show. Don't you start that. That's a whole nother show right there. Okay, that poly stuff. Actually, no, I'm sorry, I lied. I do actually have one more question. Most people, and actually somebody posted this, I'm just not gonna put it up there, but it's about why has it been so hard to find someone you couldn't find someone that were in respective Christian groups is what they're asking. Someone who could respect and understand your position because if they say they're truly, a Christian or spiritual, they would value what you're bringing to the table. Is that not a group of people that have turned out to be a good fit for you? No. She's like, no. Okay. Okay. What? Okay. I, First of all, he's a hard no at 14 kids. I don't care how, unless you are independently wealthy, you about to be broke. Your child support check is robbing the entire household budget. That's a hard no. Yes, you people can tell me I am shallow for saying it. That's a whole lot of child support, and that's no, that's a no. And first of all, if you got 14 kids, you've had no discretion with anything at that point. To me, yeah, there you go. And, well, that's why there's a resurgence of poly because it's in the Bible. Someone said it's they were doing it in the Bible, so why can't we all be poly? That's probably a show too. I should have about that whole thing about polyamorous living love is a very interesting and challenging thing. You brought up two things that would probably be great shows. That and obviously the idea of deciding that, and I've heard other black women say this with a little reluctance, by the way. I really want to be with a black man, but I might have to come to the reality that if I can't find someone, there is a world full of other kind of men that actually might embrace this piece of me differently. I've the realization, mind you, people, when I say this, plenty of people date outside their race. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I've heard a lot of black women in conversations I've been in, just their true preference is they would want to be with a black man. But I'm now hearing a lot of, especially professional black women who are doing well and struggling with dating, finally say, I may have to put that as not the top priority because for some reason I'm not being successful at finding someone who can be a good match for me for different reasons. So now you didn't did another show. Now see? Okay. Show three. I guess you're about to be a multiple guest coming on because we're about to just knock out some conversations, Melanie. That will definitely. Ooh. You don't want to get people started on this one. You don't want to get people. This is a toughie right here. Whoo, girlfriend. Don't. Whew. But, again, a very complicated conversation. That's what I'm saying. And the thing is, if you have it with enough people, some things make more sense than others, and some people authentically don't. That's not a reason they do it. And you do have some people that feel differently. But it's definitely something that's a very hot button um, for a lot of black women because as you know the rate of black women marrying is lower, often finding there are fewer black men. So let's be honest, if your dating pool is definitely like shallower and now your competition is everybody, which it is what it is, it does make it it does make it more complicated. So again, here you are saying I'm standing on my laurels of what's important to me as a black woman. You already have additional because you what you actually I feel like how you brought those things in is you're saying outside of the fact that I am a virgin, I then have all these other things that I have to deal with that complicate dating for me. There you go. That's your next book. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, you can't do that. No, we can't. You can't. You can't do it. You got to see it through. I agree. You. This is true. You do. You got to see it through. But I believe in your heart. You didn't like one. People, this is not an easy choice that she has made. Trust me. I'm sure you have been cheated on, dumped. The list of things go on that people that just struggle to accept who you were. And the choice you made was not wrong. But it's not the popular or common choice, is the thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I can't. What is wrong with people? But that's why I'm a therapist. That's why I have a job. That's why I got a job. Something wrong with people. They keep, I'm gonna have a job because something's wrong with people. I just, like this, I'm sure to many men, you are looked at like a unicorn. You are a challenge. So I do think there's some men, just for the sheer fact to see if they can break you. That would be interesting because, men always say they love the chase, the challenge. So I could see some men trying to double down and act like they could hang it and do it and probably can't. So I could see the challenges that have probably come along the way with people maybe behaving like they authentically wanted to be with you, but that wasn't their real intention. I could see that being a problem. I can't. Oh, I wish she would have gone and it could have been me. I just would have loved to have been the person sitting, the therapy lady, sitting there having this conversation with them. Love it. All right. So I'm putting the book up. Tell us about the book, where they can get it. If somebody is interested, because you're an abstinence expert, like if they could, obviously, where they get the book, but also if they want to have you come out and speak, like how does this all work? There you go. It's scrolling right there at the bottom. I know. Is that why you do the L? Because you don't want to be Mel B? You s- Okay. There you go. Yes, yes. Everybody, I'm gonna make it easy. Somebody's gonna give me grief about this, but I'm gonna keep doing it just because here, right there in the upper corner, a QR code just popped up. You can scan that code and it'll take you right to the Kindle page to purchase the book. It looks like they have a Kindle special going on too. So if you're a Kindle user through Amazon, they have a special on your book. Of course, they've got like hard copies and stuff like that. Here's the thing I like about this book, people. It's not a long read. I kind of appreciate you got to the meat and potatoes of your story, and it's under I think 100 pages if I remember correctly. That's a quick. There you Now you just drew them in. You said Zane. They're like, Zane? Okay. If you don't know Zane, then okay. But if you know Zane, you're like, 110 pages? You could read this in a day, legitimately, or a weekend. A weekend. So great read. Support Melanie. Great story. Gives you something to think about. Like, the if you're a person who values sex one way, don't navigate away from that because other people make you feel like your standards or morals don't meet theirs, because at the end of the day it's your body, so you get to decide what you do with it, and if they can't respect those boundaries you put up, that's probably not the person for you. Let's just be real. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I totally agree. Everybody, this is the absolutely amazing. This is everything I expected. This is the amazing Melanie L. Brown, everybody. Get the book. Get the book. All righty, everybody. Yes, I'm telling you. I told you this conversation was going to be adult, but it's real. And whether it's you, let's say you have a teenager, a young adult in your life, and you think this conversation could be something that they should think about, why not? Get them the book. It's a quick read, and it gives you some thoughts. And right now, there's a lot of conversation around this right now about the idea of relationships and sex and vulnerability. So this could be a book that could definitely be really helpful and to give some insight to everybody who reads it. So, everyone, thank you for listening to this episode. As I said, the whole purpose of my podcast is to help you to identify your ambitions, harness that motivation, to help you to acquire the success and satisfaction you seek in your everyday life. The key thing is always remember, if you missed any part of this episode, the one better. If you missed any of my other guests, you definitely need to tune in. You can always find the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audibles, Spotify. Pretty much, if there's a podcast platform, you can find me. Just search Maya, My Ambition, Your Ambition. You can also listen to episodes of my show on my website, which is www.maya-speaks.com. Make life easy for yourself and just subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Maya Speaks to You. And I finally got my act together, and it's actually my handle for all of my social media. So you can follow me on Maya Speaks to You on Facebook, IG, X. That's the most I do right now. I'm trying to upgrade myself, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. Remember, too, you can always check out two things on my website that I'm really proud of. I have what is my inspirational blog, and it's something once a week on Wednesdays. I give you a thought to process. I'm not giving you a daily thought, one thought a week that I really want you to pull deep and to think about. And then the other thing that's on my website is my menopause blog. Everyone knows I'm super passionate about my menopause blog because I am the poster child for menopause. But there are 60 symptoms related to menopause that most women don't know. And fellas, you probably should know this too, because if there's a woman in your life and you feel like she's fully acting out, there's probably a reason why and you don't know. You could benefit from reading my blog. And by the way, the whole thing about sex and menopause gets real complicated. So this conversation is an adult conversation. A lot of women struggle with that when they hit menopause. A lot of men don't understand. So that blog within itself could give you a lot of good nuggets, fellas. You can learn more about your partner just by checking out my blog. But of course, like I said, remember, if you want to have Maya in the palm of your hand, you can just make things so easy for yourself. And you can always just download the Maya Experience app. You can find it in the Apple Store as well as in the Amazon store right here. See, you can scan the QR codes and it'll take you there. Just search the Maya Experience and you can have Maya on the go, which means you have access to the blogs, you have access to all the podcasts that you can listen to the audio or you can watch the shows. It's all there for you right there in the palm of your hand. And you'll always know what's going on with Maya, My Ambition, Your Ambition. All right, everybody. I appreciate the time you have taken. We went a little bit longer. We had some technical stuff, but to me, this was a very worthy conversation. So until next time, remember your present becomes your past and your future is no more. People always kind of like don't get that, but I want you to think about what that means. But the key thing is to make the most of every single day because none of us are promised a tomorrow. And a lot of people forget that piece to value themselves that way. The next show, potentially next week or the week after, we're going to do a show about goal setting. I'm not about resolutions, but I want people to start rethinking the time and energy they put into how they're going to progress through their year, what you want to achieve. And goal setting should be realistic, timely, among other things. And a lot of people don't realize they never achieve the things that they want to because they've never set out to do it the way that they should. So make sure you join me for the goal setting show. Will happen about a week or two, and we'll jump deeper into that. All right, everybody. That's it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, ciao and happy 20.